Welcome back to the Genus Brewing channel. On this episode, we're going to be reviewing some coffee that we brewed. Actually, what's that?
Coffee Kolsch. Castor Muncher.
Oh, it's a beer. That wasn't acted at all. Anyways, today we're going to be talking a little bit about the recipe, and we're going to go over some ingredient styles, because you liked the time that Logan did this one
Thing up there.
Yeah, and so we're going to be going over the ingredients that we used and why we used those in this, as well as talk methodologically about how we made this beer, and kind of also talk about our progression, evolution into different versions.
The Kolsch-ish.
This is kind of, I would say, if you had to family-ize this beer, it's family-ize this beer.
We're going full family on this. Full family on this episode.
It's family matters.
Definitely not going to make sexual innuendos.
If you had to put this into a category, I guess it'd be kind of in the white stout family.
All right, so let's get into it. This beer is a Kolsch base, but also added with both espresso and caramel flavored coffee beans this time, right?
So let's start with the Kolsch base, which goes into the original recipe.
Pichow! Overlay.
Yeah, even then it's still Kolsch-ish. In this one we use corn and rye to. So Kolsch's they can be up to 20% adjunct, right? I think wheat actually might be the most.
Oh yeah, and wheat.
So we use corn and rye. I don't think it really matters, but it has adjunct in it. One of them's going to be less fermentable. One of them's going to be more fermentable. And I chose corn to kind of give a drier overall perception on this original recipe, as well as if any of the corn flavor comes through. I figured corn kind of can blend in with coffee, corn sweetness.
That sort of gentle, sweet mouthfeel thing that you can get with corn. I actually like it, personally.
Really gentle in the mouth.
Yeah.
He likes it gentle in the mouth.
Gentle in the mouth. Nope.
Because family matters.
It's like eating sweet corn on the cob, basically, is a subtle flavor of that.
I think the corn, actually, that made it through in all the different recipes, all the versions of this that we have. Mm-hmm. The rye, did that make it through in all the different? Yeah, so the rye made it through all the different
Kept
versions.
the rye. Just add just a touch of that sort of spiciness that you
earthiness,
can kind of get.
maybe.
There you go, earthiness.
Something to ground it into the coffee bean flavor, maybe, I think was the theory there, but who knows. And then also some aromatic malt in this original recipe, which we've changed in the second two versions of this. But the aromatic malt was meant to kind of give that toasted biscuit flavor, a little bit of the melanoidins, and I think that kind of lends, it bridges that gap to the sweetness, because originally we used just caramel and hazelnut coffee beans.
Yeah.
That was it for this one. And then the hops played a really back-end role.
Just use cluster, an American noble-ish hop, I guess is what you could call cluster. Not much going on with it because this style of beer really isn't about the hops.
And we stuck with pretty much across the board different variations of German ale yeast.
You've been a hardcore 1007 fan, so German ale yeast. But I think we played with True Kolsch strain. I think that was the Y yeast 2565, and the analog strain from Imperial, which is
the Dieter.
No,
the Dieter made it out of this one.
Is it Dieter?
V3.
Oh yes, it is the Dieter. Yeah, the Dieter, which is the analog strain.
It's also right here.
Oh yeah, I could have looked there. Yeah, because Imperial yeast stuff. I should be wearing my Imperial yeast shirt, but I'm not. Ultimately, we ended up using the Imperial version of the Global.
So we switched it up a lot in this one.
Yeah, which is the Weinsteffen Lager strain. That'd be the analog to what is it, the
3470 or Bohemian Lager and Y yeast.
2024?
2124?
2124, I think.
Yeah.
Basically trying to get a little bit cleaner profile. Also, I think we've actually used the California lager strain as well in another rendition of this. So we've played all around with yeast.
Yeah, we've done the California lager. We've also done the American wheat.
Yeah. And realistically, we just get slight differences in ester profile. The German ale being a little fruitier, and that one we also kind of had a hard time with the yeast dropping out.
More of a powdery strain.
Yep, very powdery. So yeah, the Cal Lager especially, we've had great luck with that here. We use it in a lot of our beers. It tends to drop out nicely with a little help from gelatin.
Yeah.
So on to bigger and better things, because we've jabbed about yeast for long enough.
Anyway, so let's talk. So this first rendition was on the drier side. and it played really well with having some sweeter coffee beans that I used in there, the hazelnut and the caramel coffee beans. Fun fact: if you use beans that have that are pre-flavored, it works kind of well. I mean, it
works really well. Peter,
what?
Why don't you tell them how we added these beans, because that actually plays a pretty important part in the way this flavor profile of this beer develops, and not to get a lot of astringency or that extra super harsh coffee flavor.
And it's also why it doesn't take on color. We whole bean it. We dry bean it with whole beans. But the reason why we dry bean it is because once alcohol is in solution, alcohol actually acts as a pretty good solvent for a lot of the oils, those aromatic oils to come out of the beans. We whole bean it because that leaves behind a lot of the astringent, the burnt, the roastiness.
Cup of black coffee in the morning flavor.
Yeah, so the things that can kind of battle an otherwise well-balanced beer. So a lot of people will use cold brew. Even cold brew can add some color, and it can give some of that astringent flavor with lighter beers. And so we like the whole bean method with this one specifically because we like to keep the color. We don't want any of that astringent flavor battling what I think is otherwise a pretty good base.
One other thing that we do is we actually add these beans just before we plan on kegging the beer. So we actually add them
important.
To our bright tank when the beer is cold, somewhere between 24 and 48 hours.
Yeah.
Probably, a day and a half is all to let them sit, because we did let one batch sit for, I think, 4 days, and it started to get what Peter calls beaniness. I pick it up as almost a slightly like green pepper vegetal flavor that you can kind of pull from letting coffee beans sit on beer for too long. So
I think most people think of it as that kind of that green pepper, that almost like warm green pepper.
Yep, exactly. So that's a pretty important part on top of the whole beans. Is really watching the amount of time that those beans sit on the beer before you pull the beer off and either put it in a keg yourself or rack it, do whatever you need to. But yeah, cold, 1 to 2 days.
That's all.
All right, so let's transition on to the one that we're drinking right now, which is our sweetest variation.
Yes.
Also our darkest because of the grains we used. And then also difference in from the caramel coffee, we also added espresso beans to this. Yep. So let me give you the grain breakdown of this. And Peter did not scale it. So 48 pounds of base malt for a 5-gallon batch.
Yep, lots of base malt.
No, this is for barrel batch, folks.
So you can scale it down. We'll have the whole things up on Brewer's Friend. If you use Brewer's Friend, you can actually pull it over to your own Brewer's Friend, and there's a scale function which works really well too.
That is, yep. So anyway, by percentages, we got 78% two-row pale malts, which is going to give us most of our sugars. And then we do have 6 pounds of flaked corn. Well, sorry, 10% flaked corn. 6
pounds.
And then we also have some flaked wheat just to build up that body. We got 3.3% of that, so really not much. And we also have 3.3% of our rye malts. And then I think what really kind of rounds out the sweetness of this beer is that we have 1.6% of both Caravien and honey malts. Caravien is pretty, straightforward descriptor. It's about, I think, 20 Lovibond. And it gives a slightly less cloying sweetness compared to something like a caramel 20. So honey malt, which is very similar to like a melanoidin malt, and that just adds
they call it a brew malt, technically.
Brew malt, oh yes, there we go. And that adds a very specific honey-like sweetness. But that's kind of the main difference. The Caravien, I think, is actually what's giving it a little bit darker color. In the past, this beer has been closer to a straw color, where you can see here it's definitely more of a golden color. Now,
because it's a sweeter base, and instead of using our standard, the regular 6 to 7 ounces of hazelnut caramel coffee beans, I added a couple ounces of espresso beans as well. I actually wanted to really try to push the roast quality, that darker, stronger coffee flavor in this one, because of the sweet body that we have over our original recipe.
So let's give them a few notes on what this beer actually tastes like.
Yeah.
So the aroma is very, very strong coffee aroma. You get the caramel notes, but then you also get a sort of heavier roast of coffee in there, and I think that must be the espresso bean, because I haven't gotten that out of any of our previous batches. Up front, it's sweet. In the back, it's dry, which is
kind of what you want.
Juxtaposing, I suppose. See what I did there?
That wasn't a joke at all.
I'm spilling all over our recipes.
Someone's drunk. I get like a kind of an overall perception of like a. I don't know too much about coffee, but like a brulee cappuccino maybe. If you had like coffee beans and the foam was brulee, I don't know. I know nothing about
coffee brulee.
Yeah.
Coffee brulee.
But there is that sweetness, and that there's a little bit of that kind of like, you know, that Maillard proteininess. It does kind of round into...
It's really a complex beer.
It is.
Surprisingly so.
Strangely so. It's a beer that you could just not think about and pound, but also if you like really dive in, there's a lot of flavors going on.
And the honey's not overwhelming, the honey malt. I really like the fact that it plays a background supporting role. It's effervescent on your tongue. Effervescent? Not. It's
It dances.
It dances
on the palate.
Dances on the palate.
It's a lot going on. For my palate, honestly, this version is too sweet. But this of the versions that we do, the sweeter ones tend to be more popular. So a lot of people like these sweeter versions. If you're a dry person, try the original one.
Try the original if you like dry stuffs. And
dry stuffs.
Try to keep it
separated.
Yeah. So to put this description simply, so this beer is dominated by coffee, sweet up front, but finishes very round and very quickly, and it leaves you wanting to take another sip of it, just like, and then the next thing you know, it's gone. So,
but there are magic refill buttons. Watch this.
Whoa! Wow!
And just like that, they're refilled.
Totally didn't take 5 minutes.
That probably moved somewhere, but... Anyways, magical refilling beer, it's great. You should try some. What's the cliff notes? What's the takeaway on this? How to dry bean. You should know how to dry bean.
Takeaway, dry beaning. Also, don't be afraid to add coffee to beer.
Coffee's fun. It can keep your beer light. Did I say something about white stout already?
You did.
In the family ordered class profile of white stout, maybe.
Super group. We no longer have kingdoms now called super groups.
Oh man, Lion King people are going to be pissed.
Oh shoot.
We did some water chem. It's in the recipe. You can take a look.
Oh yeah, water chem. That's another thing.
Keep adding to our list of ideas by commenting in the description below what else you would like to see us do. Ring the bell skis for notifications. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
Thumb up, thumb down, whatever you feel like today.
All that.
That's all cool.
Pet Logan like a chia pet.
Meow. Till next time.
Genus Brewing.
Genus Brewing.
Bop.
Dink.
Nailed that.
Woo! Nailed that energy. It's for you guys out there.
Alright. Now we should do it again with the camera filming. Just joking.
Is that over 10 minutes?
No, it's not yet.